I think everyone is here that's going to be here, so we'll call the Board of Directors meeting for Thursday, August 28th, 2025 to order. Mind taking the roll, please?
Ms. Shy. Mr. Georges. Here. Mr. Messino.
Here.
Mr. Lombardi. Present. Director Alvidi.
Present.
Mr. Benoit.
Here.
Mr. Crowley.
Here.
Mr. Leach.
Here. Thank you. So we have a quorum, and the first item of business today is board approval to consider for approval the draft meeting minutes of the Board of Directors meeting of July 24th, 2025.
Motion to approve the minutes.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed, the ayes have it. The motion carries. The second item on the agenda is board approval to consider for approval the executive session meeting minutes of the Board of Directors meeting of July 24th, 2025.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion
Second.
and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed, the ayes have it. The motion carries. The next item on the agenda is public comment. And we will, as we have for the last several years, be asking everyone to abide by a 3-minute per person limit so that we could both hear everybody that is attending and also have time for the board to act on items. Yes.
I think we may have skipped.
I did. Board approval to consider for approval draft meeting minutes of the special Board of Directors meeting of August 7th, 2025.
Motion to approve.
Motion second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it and the motion carries. So now on to the public comment. And again, I'll ask everybody to be mindful that there's a 3-minute per person limit so that everybody has a chance to say something.
I'm also going to remind you that it's a 3-minute limit. Well, I will be the one notifying you that 3 minutes is up. And we appreciate the consideration of that. First person signed up is Walter Malillo. Afternoon, board members, chairman. Representative. I speak to you today, as always, not in support of any reduction in public transit or services. While I appreciate there have been no layoffs, any decrease in services significantly impact our members. As we know already, our operators experience limited recovery time. Further cuts, this will all reduce this recovery time even more, resulting in both physical and mental, and the ability to perform at the highest level, as well as insufficient restroom access throughout the day. This we all know will affect the riders who have possibly overcrowded buses, late trips due to the reduction in the frequency of this. It is our hope. Just let me state that I understand that every board member here knows how important public transit is to stay around. But it is our hope state leaders recognize the essential role public transit plays in supporting our community, economy, and state growth. Continued investment in transit is necessary. Without it, sustainable funding source, this ongoing crisis will persist. You will be back here. Ask you, I ask everybody here to advocate, support public transit, and let public transit die. State. Crucial. Citizens. Crucial.
Thank you. Could we please make a note that Bernard has joined us and mark him present for attendance? Thank you.
Next speaker is Representative Teresa Tanzi.
My name is Teresa Tansey. I'm a member of the House of Representatives representing Narragansett Southeast. I've been in office for 15 years. And one thing that I've heard consistently over and over again is businesses want predictability. And businesses aren't the only ones that expect that certainty. Our riders, the business community that transit serves, and all people in Rhode Island deserve some sense of certainty. I've been through many years of these proposed service cuts and changes and experienced firsthand the roller coaster that this puts our residents, our constituents and riders and businesses through. We now have the efficiency report. We know definitively that it's not RIPTA that is the problem. The board has some significant decisions to make, unfortunate decisions, but it's time that we as a state make the determination as to whether or not we're going to be a provider of predictable public transportation, plain and simple. Are we going to invest in a system that works? Or are we going to stand by and watch as it slowly deteriorates, strangles our economic progress, destroys opportunities for individuals who rely on the transit system to get to school, to work, while it deprives others of the opportunity to have a full and rich social life, which is just as important for individuals as getting to their medical doctor's appointments. The decision today lies with you, the board. But in the future, will you advocate for a stronger transit system? Will you be in attendance at the next General Assembly hearings when we discuss investments in RIPTA and funding transit master, which was the one conclusion that this efficiency report said should be a top priority? Are you ready to stand up for RIPTA and make it into the transit system you all know we desperately need in the state? Or are we going to just sit back and watch year after year as the devastating cuts, while watching the heart-wrenching testimony about how deeply these cuts will impact people who live in our state? This is up to you, the board. You're the driver for the next decade of our transit system. The decisions you make this year will determine whether we're on this perennial roller coaster or we transition to a reliable, predictable, dependable transit system that serves all Rhode Islanders. Thank you.
Thank you. Do any of the members have any questions? Thank you.
I apologize. The next speaker, the last name is Vargas. I can't read the first name. Last name
No.
is Vargas. Mr. John Flaherty.
Good afternoon. My name is John Flaherty. I'm here today on behalf of Grossmark, Rhode Island. We want to once again thank you for your volunteer service to RIPTA. We know it's not easy. This is one of those agonizing moments when you have to reconcile the resources that have been allocated with the devastating consequences of the service cuts that are currently on the table. But make no mistake, the proposed cuts before you right now remain among the largest in RIPTA's 59-year history. They will inflict severe hardship on many people, businesses, and institutions, while undermining the value of public transit. The cutting service will further reduce ridership, fare box revenue, with strong potential to trigger a full-blown transit death spiral. If you haven't heard of transit death spiral, look it up. It's very real. You don't have to take my word for it, but consider RIPTA's own annual audit numbers. The period following the last large-scale service cut that occurred 17 years ago in 2008. In that year, ridership was more than 21 million. Today it's about 12. But along with those service cuts, there were also two fare increases, one in 2009 and one in 2011. And that's when the decline in ridership and fare revenue began in and it's one that we have never recovered from. Today, there are 9 million fewer passenger trips annually, and annual fare revenue has dropped to nearly $7 million annually. It has dropped $7 million annually. And some will ask, why has ridership declined? We hear that question often. So when we read the letter and the press release from the governor presenting a budget framework that secures RIPTA's immediate future, while positioning us to build the kind of transit system that Rhode Island deserves, you'll forgive us for not seeing it as anything more than cheap lipstick on a pig. We do appreciate the hopeful words of Speaker Archie in responding to this revised proposal, saying, quote, "As the House scrutinizes this latest announcement, we will continue to work with advocates and hold the administration and the RIPTA board accountable to develop a comprehensive plan that will create a better transit model for Rhode Island." Business community has spoken up and loudly. Letters from the Rhode Island Manufacturers Association, the Rhode Island Hospitality Association, the Providence Foundation, the South Kingstown Economic Development Committee, among others, asking to resolve the budget issue.
All right, that's 3 minutes. Please finish up.
Okay, thank you. So I will end with a request. And that is that we ask you, please not be instruments of dismantling what is proven to be a well-run agency. Among the best in the nation, in fact. It's something we should be proud of and support and nurture. If the cuts are enacted, there's sure to be much finger pointing in the months ahead. This is a chance to be on the right side of history by rejecting the cuts. The funds are there. The governor made a proposal on June 26th to transfer $15 million in surplus funds. And so they are there. And please insist that that happens, because a well-run transit system is a terrible thing to waste. Thank you.
Thank you. Do the board members have any questions? Thank you.
Representative David Morales.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I stand here today as a legislator that represents thousands of working people, seniors, and students across the state of Providence, many of whom would be directly impacted by the decision to move forward with any service reductions or cuts. And this has taken the form, as we have heard throughout the RIPTA public hearings, having students that are now going to be in a situation where there's less stability as relates to getting from their homes over to getting to school on time, which is in direct contrast to the governor's initiative around attendance matter. It's the difference of whether or not the working person is able to reliably depend on public transportation as their means of being able to get to their job and contribute to the economy. And while it is true that RIPTA has been dealt with the hard hand of being underfunded within this last state budget, I want us to recognize that there are still other opportunities that exist to ensure that we prevent any service cuts. Because today I'm calling on the board to delay any vote related to service cuts for RIPTA, and instead to pass a resolution calling on the General Assembly to reconvene for a short special session for the purposes of being able to pass a supplemental budget that would allocate the necessary resources to plug the $10 million deficit that exists for RIPTA. And I want to assure the board that this in of itself would be a popular decision based on feedback from the public, considering the fact that many cities and towns have passed resolutions urging for solutions to be found. The business community has spoken, but most importantly, the bus riders, the users of public transportation have spoken. And our job as elected officials is to be responsive to them. So if we are being told by the board of our public transit agency, we need y'all in the legislature to come back and develop a solution based on reallocating funding, which I recognize you cannot do as a body, but we in the legislature can. I will tell you right now, there are dozens of legislators who have been receiving calls and want to act. We have been receiving calls from our constituents, and we would welcome an opportunity to be able to act by passing a supplemental budget that would plug the deficit. But it's not enough for us as legislators to be able to directly connect with House and Senate leadership to communicate this. There's a lot of value when the leadership from the RIPTA board is calling on the legislature to do so. So again, I call on the board to delay a vote around any service cuts and to instead pursue a resolution calling on the General Assembly to reconvene, pass a supplemental budget, so RIPTA does not have to face the decision around any service cuts. Thank you.
Do the board members have any questions? Thank you very much.
Next speaker is Liza Burke.
Good afternoon. So this plan may be less bad than the one we were faced with on August 7th, but make no mistake, there is nothing good here to be celebrating. Instead of murdering RIPTA, Governor McKee is merely putting out life support. Yet when I listen to the positive narrative that's being spun in the media by RIPTA, by the governor, and by the board chair, it feels like I'm listening to some alternative reality that completely ignores the damage this is going to have on RIPTA and its riders. This is not a right sizing of RIPTA. These cuts will cripple the agency, turning the hope of growing ridership into a fantasy. There is nothing about shrinking RIPTA that makes it stronger. Riders are going to be further burdened with lower frequencies, canceled weekend service, scaled back hours. That is not a stronger and more modern agency. With regard to fare increases, your own efficiency studies paints a grim picture when it comes to the consequences of increasing fares, while at the same time pointing out that RIPTA is in line or more expensive than its peer agencies. Quote, fare increases will discourage some riders from continuing to use transit such that it diminishes the total revenue increase that would have occurred if all riders continued using transit. There is an abundance of evidence that raising fares will lead to lower ridership, further damaging any hope of growing this agency. So much emphasis was placed on this efficiency study by this body, by the legislature, and now you're throwing cold water on it just because you don't like what it says. Continuing to suggest that burdening riders with this agency's financial stability is a good idea shows that you have given up finding real solutions. We are at a time where we cannot afford to be shrinking our public transit system for all the reasons that we've been talking about for years. Climate change, rising housing costs, and basic economic competitiveness with other states. So we are here a final time begging you not to move forward with these cuts. You as the board have the voice today to vote no. Reject the governor's plan. Tell him to go back and try again. Thank you.
Any questions from the board members? Thank you.
Gilbert? Gilbert?
While I appreciate that the plan that is proposed, this version of the governor's new deal is slightly better, it is still destructive. It is still cruel. As a daily rider of RIPTA myself and a Providence resident without a car, I rely on over 20 RIPTA routes every month to get around. And we cannot reduce the frequency of weekend service for 45 RIPTA routes. We cannot make this system less reliable for riders like me. Reducing the frequency, for example, of the 4 means I might not be able to get to work on time. It's the difference of me being still able to teach and then get to my next part of the day. Eliminating a segment of the 14 that goes to Narragansett means I wouldn't have access to attend meetings of the local organization I'm involved with. And on my way back from Narragansett a few weeks ago on the 14, I ran into someone I knew on the bus, telling him about the potential cuts. And he was stunned. How will I get where I need to be? This is what my friends are saying. This is what the community is saying. And this new proposal is not a victory because drivers will still lose their jobs and there is no sustainable solution. And this system being crippled in the name of building a strong transit system is a joke. Raising bus fares also will not fix the problem. They won't come close to fixing the budget gap. So because they're a fraction of the revenue, they'll decrease ridership and will be impractical for riders to pay in cash. If the cost of RIPTA rises and service is cut, ridership will decrease. Wounding RIPTA wounds all of Rhode Island, our citizens, our economy, and our future. I, along with so many others who spoke at RIPTA's public hearings, the piles of stories about each unique way that these cuts would devastate our lives were heartfelt. Were those hearings truly heard? It was an outpouring of outrage, a demonstration of desperation, and a holding of hope for all RIPTA riders. So to you here, the RIPTA board, I really believe you have a heart. I believe that you want, that you do want RIPTA to run. And if you say that you care for the people of Rhode Island, that you care for RIPTA, that you care for riders, then our voice has been overwhelmingly clear. That you need to fully run RIPTA. You need to reject this new proposal. You need to not alter segments of our maps. That's unacceptable. We need to be expanding our mobility and investing even more in public transit as a public service and an investment in the well-being of both our city and our planet. There is still time. You can still say no. Listen to our voices and do the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from board members? Thank you.
Next speaker is Nicholas Rudder.
Everyone, I just want to note, previously testifying at the Providence hearings, it's just another benefit of a public transit system that can engage directly with the people who use it. And public transit is a system that doesn't threaten the environment, housing, or safety of the citizens it serves, but rather complements it. We're here because of a decision by the governor to hold back necessary funding to keep RIPTA running at its current state in its proposed budget. The state legislature, to their credit, made huge unprecedented strides in trying to minimize this gap by increasing the amount of permanent funding RIPTA receives, reducing the deficit to where we are today, $10 million, almost closing entirely with the motion by State Senator Zurier to move funds from RIDOT to keep RIPTA solvent. RIPTA did not put itself in this situation. It was forced into it by perpetual underfunding. RIPTA, its advocates and users have once again been forced to acquiesce to the ritual of begging for money while under vacant and acting administrative positions in RIPTA and being subject to a moot efficiency study. No other state agency is privy to this amount of means testing, much less other state agencies test with transporting our residents. Despite these constraints, RIPTA successfully completed the study, navigated a leadership crisis, addressed the driver shortage and by transit property the service gaps, all while expanding service to Quonset, Amazon, and the soccer stadium, as well as expansion of the RIPTA Wave to Work program. All while maintaining the crucial existing statewide connections to work, study, family, food, and leisure for Rhode Islanders of all incomes and abilities. I will conclude with a warning reiterated by an earlier speaker today that no cuts are truly temporary because RIPTA is still recovering those cuts in 2008. And these are the reasons why we are often wrestling declining ridership numbers. As admittedly, ridership is still struggling to reach that $21 million ridership peak pre-cuts. But again, these are policy decisions by our leaders. These reasons why the RIPTA ridership numbers are not meeting their potential, that they're in danger of creating a self-fulfilling prophecy. So to reiterate, RIPTA has closed service gaps, raised driver pay, expanded service while maintaining peak efficiency under a capable CEO. In the contrast, the automobile and rideshare prices remain exorbitant, declining quality of product, experience, and infrastructure. Rhode Island leadership is choosing to turn its back on this tremendous opportunity to allow RIPTA to thrive and instead are repeating the same short-sighted missteps in the name of an item line. The increased car usage and subsequent liabilities of death, injury, property and road damage, congestion, drain on law enforcement resources, as well as loss of jobs and access to education, All this will greatly eclipse whatever pennies have been successfully pitched by reducing RIPTA service rather than expanding it. I call upon the board to reject these cuts and the state of Rhode Island to do what is avoided for decades and fully fund and expand RIPTA for the benefit of all Ocean State residents, workers, and tourists.
The board members have any questions? Thank you.
Good evening, board members. My name is Lamis Vargas. I'm the state senator representing the District of 28, which encompasses a portion of the city of Providence and also encompasses a portion of the city. I'll start off by saying, since being elected as senator this past year, I pushed hard for full sustainability funding of RIPTA, including sponsoring a bill to place $100 million bond referendum for public transit on next year's election ballot. He also voted in favor of Senator Sam Zurrier's floor amendment to redirect the $10 million in gas tax and highway funding towards RIPTA. This budget amendment is obviously an attempt to provide more stable funding to the transit authority, and unfortunately that amendment did fail. While I am encouraged by the recent developments to set off what could be described as devastating cuts, there is still much work to clearly, as we all know, to be done on this issue. And I do remain close in contact with advocates from the Safe RIPTA Coalition, and I do pledge to continue fighting for full and sustainable funding in public transportation in our state. Now, I do not believe increasing public transportation fare is the right path towards addressing operational funding needs. Happy, however, to discuss and hear everyone out, as my mind may obviously change depending on what I'm hearing. I'd like to get at the issues first. Fare hikes place the greatest burden on the very riders who depend on most of these services. And so here this afternoon, not only to just speak, but also to listen and reaffirm my commitment to work in partnership with all of you as board members, the leadership, union members, and clearly my colleagues in government to ensure that move RIPTA in the right direction. Based on what I'm hearing, raising fares will not, I don't think, resolve our challenges. Instead, it risks the consequences as damaging the service cuts. A fare increase creates a ripple effect, limiting access to healthcare, as we know, jobs and education for folks that are trying to get to all those locations. I don't represent the URI campus, but I do represent many students who do live in my district that attend URI, are living off campus, nearby campus, I should say, and whose routes will be affected even by the reducing the time, even if the routes don't necessarily get eliminated, but by those, but the time. And again, it's just my responsibility to amplify their voices. And at a time when the cost of living continues to rise, increasing fares will only drive down ridership and deepen the burden on those that are already struggling.
Senator, if I may, you've reached the 3-minute.
Oh, I apologize.
I
Oh, I'm
wanted-
sorry. I didn't want to use
you
3
could,
minutes. I will. I apologize. I'll shorten it up and just say, I don't. It's not a luxury, public transportation. My mother takes the bus, relies heavily on the bus as well, and so does many others. And it's also a choice for residents to stay committed to protecting our environment and reducing greenhouse gas emissions, confronting the urgent reality of climate change. So public buses are more than a means of getting from one place to another. They are a lifeline for our communities, an engine of economic opportunity, and a cornerstone of our state's climate equity goals. And so I want to thank you for your time, and I am more than welcome to continue to roll my sleeve and work with you as your state senator, as a constituent, as a member of the state of Rhode Island. And I'm sure you're all what I call pickle, right? We're trying to figure out what's best for everyone, and it's certainly tough. And I'm there when I'm sitting down in the different committees that I serve, and I understand that. And I hope that everybody clearly has a well-intended vision for RIPTA, but also for the riders who are here today and I'm watching it. So thank you for your time.
Board members have any questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Director.
Next speaker, Stoner. Stone, I'm sorry.
Lady and gentlemen, I am what you might call a regular rider. I'm stoning up the buses that I have used in the last year, almost all of them regular, with some great deal of regularity. That's 18. Talked a lot with drivers, and I've talked a lot with passengers. And I'm not here to say that RIPTA does not need money and there are things that need to be done and can be done. This proposal is not the way to go. I stand with anyone here who has asked you to either not to agree to this proposal now, or if you do, to postpone implementation until this is reconsidered. Because what you have before you is ill-considered and will not do the job and will cause tremendous hardship, not only to the ridership, but also to the state. The reason it will do that is because this proposal ends up cutting weekend and holiday service, 10, 11 different places, different lines, at least some of which, including my line, the 16, presents offers a sole way of getting up and down to for people in East Greenwich, North Kingstown, etc. And they will not be able to shop. They will not be able to visit families. And even though it may say on a weekend and holiday, you're talking about maybe 3 different days for many of these routes where people will not be able to visit families on state holidays. They won't be able to go to church. Okay, they will not be able to go shopping. And if they don't go shopping, what happens? The state loses revenue, localities lose revenue, and it will be a disaster without rethinking this. Now, I understand, and I've been asked by a number of drivers and other observers to talk about the fact that there do not appear to be anyone in upper management who has any real transportation management experience. I am not able to vouch for that, but I do know this because I have a certain amount years ago. There are things that can be done and should be done. I have a couple of proposals, which actually I proposed in the first 2 August meetings, that don't involve raising the fares. But for example, people use Wave. They put it on their, most of them put it on their phone.
Excuse me, Mr. Stone, you're at the 3-minute limit.
In any event, I don't see why RIPTA can't charge $10 every 6 months to people who use Wave, put it on their phone. That will bring in some income. Even people who are like me have reduced fare cards for disability, age, 79, etc. Certainly will be able to pay $10 a year rather than every 2 years, or even again $10. This will bring in some revenue, but more importantly is that people's families, their lives, their finances will be disrupted by some of these proposals. And rather than going into them at this point, there has been no real opportunity for the public, any other interested parties, to go over in detail each of the proposals. There are too many cuts and they're inefficient. And as I say, revenue needs to be raised. But if this proposal goes, Governor McKee, whose office I have spoken to several times, and a lot of the people who are representatives and senators are going to have to face public backlash. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from board members? Thank you.
Next speaker is Barry Schiller.
Hi, board. Barry Schiller. I've been on this board and long life using transit and advocating for it. And I'm kind of angry that I have to be here to try to avoid the downward spiral that threatens RIPTA that John Flaherty referred to. That would be the end of RIPTA as a tool for improving our economy, environment, reducing accidents, and steering better land use. Don't want that to happen, so I have several points about that. One is, I understand that you have, being on the board before, you have to have a balanced budget. So if you're going to vote for the service cuts, and even that is not clear that it's a balanced budget, there's some iffy things. You got to take steps to try to minimize the damage. Two suggestions since you're rescheduling everything. One is customer friendly to do clock face scheduling as much as possible. My 57 line used to leave Kennedy Plaza on the hour, half hour. Now it's every 35, 37 minutes. I have no idea when it leaves. It's very unfriendly for users. Secondly, see what you can do to run more through lines that make sense. 57 Smith Street goes by the State House, the train station, the Providence Place Mall, and then becomes a 55 that repeats that, goes right back through those things. That doesn't make any marketing sense. If you could match 57 and 55 with South Side lines, one of the earlier iterations of the service cuts had the 57 match the 21 from the South Side, giving a one-seat ride from the South Side to those destinations. See what you can do about that. Just a suggestion. More importantly, though, for the board members, if you care about the agency and you want to avoid the downward spiral, you've got to use your contacts with business, with labor unions, other labor organizations, and with the state government itself to promote transit. And for example, with the state government, implement the 2008 law that required steps to reduce state employee commute miles. Never been implemented. See what you can do. Also, because the governor appointed you to the board, I know you're not going to want to publicly criticize it. I don't blame you for that. But behind the scenes, you could call his office and say, you know what, you could avert these cuts if you want to. We know you can. He himself said in late June, as John Flaherty mentioned, that he had 15 million available for it. You know that when the Washington Bridge closed, they found money to redo the eastbound, and they even found money for a ferry. So there's always flexibility in transportation funding if the governor wanted to use it. And of course, there's a supplemental budget that he's proposed that he works out with the legislative leaders to avert the cuts. And even if you vote for the cuts today, you could still call the governor. And I like Rep. Morales' suggestion, maybe the General Assembly leaders, to avert the cuts until they happen. It's not over, right?
Barry, you're at the 3 minute
And my wrap up is that I gave Broad Rivers because their increases are on the horizon. I gave them a study that we did for Rhode Island transit riders of 10 comparable systems, and we're already tied for the top fare among those 10 systems, which have other fares from $0 to $1.75. One other that's $2. So we're already high. Let's not go there to raise revenue. It won't raise much. Okay, thank you for listening.
Board members have any questions? Thank you.
Speaker will be Jason Victoria O'Connell. Is that right? All right, that's great.
Good afternoon. My name is Jason Victoria O'Connell. I live in Providence. I spoke at the board meeting on August 7th, and I framed what I said as a sales pitch interspersed with appeals to empathy. Today, I would like to appeal to common sense. Associations, companies, experts, politicians, and everyday citizens from all over Rhode Island have said that RIPTA is an essential service. People depend on RIPTA to get their groceries, go to work and school, see loved ones, get to doctor appointments. Common sense dictates that we should not have to beg and plead for essential services. We should not have to pay more for essential services, especially when the rates are already higher than they are in other places. For example, in Connecticut, a 2-hour pass is $1.75 and a day pass is $3.50. I keep hearing the word deficit. And I know we live in late stage capitalism, but RIPTA is not a for-profit organization. It's not there to generate revenue. It's a public service. That makes y'all, as members of the RIPTA board, public servants. So using some common sense, you need to serve the public. You need to advocate for us. Demand full funding for RIPTA. Don't focus on closing a $10 million deficit when the police budget for Providence alone for fiscal year 2026 is $118.7 million, according to a quick Google search. It's not that the money isn't there. It's that the money is going to the wrong places, and I urge you to bring this to the attention of Governor McKee. And FYI, he's a public servant too, and I think this board should remind him of that. Remind him that he is supposed to take care of the people. In Christopher Durand and Governor McKee's August 25th letter to the board, it calls for fewer, more targeted service reductions informed by demand data. The scaled back service reductions generally focus on the highest cost, lowest performing routes and frequencies. What that's really saying is these routes don't make a ton of money, so it's okay to screw over the people who depend on those buses. That's not okay. I want to reiterate 2 things I said at the August 7th meeting. 1, taxpayers foot the bill for RIPTA and a majority of the bill for the police. As a taxpayer who uses RIPTA literally 1 day per calendar month, if that, I'm happy to have my tax dollars go to RIPTA, a service that helps my community, helps my fellow Rhode Islanders, rather than to overfunding the police. And 2, when you make it too expensive for people to live, you condemn those people to death. My final thought for today is that the common sense reason I want RIPTA to not only not be reduced, but fully funded is this. I would like to have a society, a society where we take care of each other, where we have community and we actually give a damn about our neighbors. Thank you for your time.
Board members have any questions? Thank you.
Jamie Arnold.
Afternoon. My name is Jane Arnold, and I live in Pawtucket. And before I came here, there were 3 things I was wondering about. I was wondering how many of you got here on a bus today. I was wondering how many of you take a bus to work regularly. And third, I was wondering if the answer is no, which my experience has been, it probably is. Why not? Now, you've heard a lot of people don't have alternatives. They have to take the bus to get to work, to get to medical appointments, to get to school, to shop. Those of us who have alternatives would really like to have reliable, frequent buses so we can take them. I would love to have somebody else drive so that I don't have to deal with people who think that a stop sign means yield if you happen to feel like it, and if not, I'm going to hit you. I would love to have somebody else drive down one of those narrow streets, which are 2-way and wide enough for 2 cars to pass each other if there weren't cars parked on both sides. And you have to go in and out and juggle yourself around. I love the fact that I could take a bus if it's snowing and I don't have to dig the car out and I don't have to shovel the driveway. And I like riding the bus because I like looking at the people. I like looking at the drivers. I am not the only one. My neighbor just got a job at Brown. She would be ecstatic to be able to take the bus. 10-minute bus ride, 5-minute walk to the stop, 10-minute bus ride. She doesn't have to find parking. She's got to get to work on time. She doesn't have a choice. And the number 1 bus is unreliable. And I have learned I don't take it if I need to be somewhere, transfer a bus or to meet somebody, because it might be early and it might be late and it only runs every 20 minutes. So if it comes 15 minutes early, as it did the last time I took it, I might be there for 45 minutes waiting for another bus. That's not okay for public transit for anybody. Megan Coleman also, in one of her testimonies here, brought up the fact that the number 1 bus goes down Home Street. Lots of people work at Brown. It would be really great if they took that bus and then more people would take the bus. But the more you cut, the less reliable it is and the more people with alternatives are going to take those alternatives because they just don't have time or energy to deal with, is the bus going to come? Am I going to get there on time? The other really good reason to take the bus is it seems to me, and again, I have heard this, the people who are making the decisions about the lives of the citizens of the state don't take buses. Well, why not? Because we do, and you should know who's on those buses. You should get out and talk and see those people. When I was trying to figure out where I wanted to live when I retired, first time I could move somewhere, I wanted to move, not where somebody got a job. I lived in 8 states, 14 different communities, many with public transit. I spent quite a lot of time in Providence, and I spent 3 months living just over the Cranston line on Broad Street, and I was under the delusion at that time that there were lots of buses because there were 3 that went downtown. Okay, one story. So on one of those buses, went down Broad Street, was on the bus going down Broad Street. The driver started to pull over to a stop where there was somebody sitting in a wheelchair, and a young man at the back of the bus got up and started arranging a seat so that the person in the wheelchair could sit there. And I thought, yeah, I think I want to live here. I like these people.
Do the board members have any questions? Thank you.
Next speaker is Joan Rich.
Good afternoon, board members. My name is Joanne Rich. I live on the east side. I ride the bus, and I'm lucky that I also afford a car. So the reason that I'm here testifying, and that I testified twice at this legislative session, is that we are living in scary times. We are literally watching dictatorship potentially taking over. So these are times that call for us to pull together and cooperate, and above all, to be selfless and courageous. The lack of funding for RIPTA is not just a failure of the governors. It is also a failure of the legislature that did not find the means for RIPTA to function like the civilized transit system it deserves. The proposal before you today does not make sense for all the reasons that others have better explained. The bottom line is that Rhode Island needs to be more fair. It takes courage to say that, and even more to do it. So these people are not all in the room, but Governor McKee, make it fair. Come up with better solutions than increasing fares on your poorest constituents. Speaker Shekarski and Senate President Wasson, make it fair. Reconvene the legislature to pass a supplemental budget to transfer RIDOT funds to RIPTA. While you're at it, have Rhode Islanders who earn the most pay their fair share, tax the 1%. Why would you do these things when it doesn't serve you personally? Because it's the right thing to do, the courageous thing. Director Alvey, please use your influence to support the Rhode Islanders who are working hard to care for their families by allowing DOT funds to transfer to RIPTA if the legislature, the governor asks. Rhode Island can tend towards fiefdoms, but it doesn't have to be that. State representatives and senators, make it fair. Have courage. Don't let yourselves be bullied. Realize that by pulling together to support the most disadvantaged among us, that we are all supported. In conclusion, whatever your income, race, town, your driving situation, a great state like Rhode Island deserves public transit that serves its riders. It deserves fair, honorable leaders who care for everyone, not just the rich and poor. Board members, I call on you today to postpone your vote, pass a resolution asking the legislature to reconvene, to pass a supplemental budget and As RIPTA's board, courageously pass this issue back to the legislature. For me, for so many people that I talk to, that I work with, it is so sad that we are living in times where being cruel, greedy, selfish, and controlling has been so normalized, and we're hearing that in the news every day. But here we are, and the solution is courage. Thank you.
Do the board members have any questions? Thank you.
Next speaker is Representative Sanchez.
Ricky Sanchez, State Representative 9. Thank you for hosting another conference today. Appreciate the time and transparency. Community members to testify as well. Sanchez here speaking. I don't want to speak too long. So I know that there has been a plan of action now set in place. I've been hearing from constituent residents that this new RIPTA proposal is still not enough for our communities. There's proposed cuts, there's proposed amendments that aren't sufficient enough, adequate enough for public transportation users. And I want us to go back and see if we can make some adjustments to this proposal. Public transportation affects everyone. I used to think that, just folks who didn't want to drive cars wanted to just use public transportation. The reality is that a lot of working class Rhode Islanders depend on transportation, especially now when high cost of living, rents, mortgages, car insurance, people are not driving cars anymore so that they can afford to move around to their jobs. They can't pay their gas bill, they can't pay their car mortgage, their car loan, they can't pay the car insurance, so people are switching back to buses and public transportation. And if we, as the states, don't do enough to invest adequate resources and funding into these programs, then a lot of landers are not going to be able to get to the jobs, to their schools, to their doctor's appointments. Elderly communities are going to be affected partially. Many thousands of Providence students, I represent district that has many schools in it, and I see a lot of our kids that depend on RIPTA to get around to school. And if we go forward with this proposal, there will be some cuts to those services that we use for kids. So I hope that you guys take that into consideration. I know we're in a tough spot. I know we're in a very tough spot, especially with this administration, federal administration. I know we have our hands tied behind our backs. I know we're losing more funding, federal governments. I know everything is just going to crap right now. I know, trust me. Where? But we have to do our part to minimize the damage at the state level. And public transportation, RIPTA, is a priority for our communities. And so I ask you gentlemen to please do the right thing. Push this back to the legislature, speak to Governor McKee, speak to the state administration to see that we can make some changes. Thank you again for your time.
Thank you. Any questions from board members? Thank you.
Next speaker is Daniel Blanchett.
Good afternoon, members of the board. As some of you probably already know by now, my name is Daniel Blanchett. I live in Pawtucket, and I come before you being somewhat mixed. On one hand, I want to thank you to the revised proposal for not doing any of the eliminations that you had originally planned for Pawtucket overall. But I do have one minor quibble when it comes, well, not minor quibble, one big quibble when it comes to the reduction of service frequencies and cuts and all that. And I will do that with the routes that I'm most familiar with because they're closest to me, the 76 and the 35. Now, the current proposal advocates for eliminating Saturday service for the 76 and Sunday service for the 35. Now, I work at a theater in Providence, and some of you know the Veterans Auditorium, which is not far from, which is literally like across the street from the State House. Now, unlike most positions, our theater positions, for those of us that are aisle captains, ushers, all that, are very irregular. We have to plan ahead of time when our availability is for certain months. So right now we're in a cycle where we're planning availability for October, a couple months from now. And if you look at the schedule on the website for some of the theaters, a good portion of them happen on weekends. So if the cuts went through for the 76 and the 35, and because a lot of our events happen on weekends, in the evenings, how am I supposed to be able to get to work? It's a simple question. How am I gonna get to work when those buses are not there when I need them? So for me, it's easy for me to have the buses there on the weekends, not get cut. And the 35 especially, and for the 35 in addition, I use that to connect to the 57 to get to church in North Providence. If the cuts go through, how am I gonna get to church when services are at noon? So all I'm asking at this point is, don't go through with any reduction in service frequencies. Pawtucket, especially the 76 and 35, but mainly all of them. And talk with the city of Pawtucket, with Mayor Revian's office. Talk with the Division of Parks and Recreation, particularly since Slater Park, which the 80 goes by on weekdays. Right now, in the good season from spring to fall, the weekends are when
Excuse me, the 3 minutes is up, so if you could wrap it up, we'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah. And so just talk with the city, see what you can do for not only preventing the reductions in service frequencies, but expanding service in Pawtucket, including reversing some of the older service cuts like with the 76 on Sundays and the 80 on the weekends. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Do board members have any questions? Thank you.
Next speaker is Clarence Cattell.
Good afternoon, everyone. We told me bus service Saturday, 58. We've been on that 58 issue for a long time, but I've been trying to 14 years. And they said, we'll make it a half hour, but never happened. And I did Justin 27 from Sandale stores every hour, like rotating. They never even bothered making that. That would benefit a lot of people, but we don't have Sundays and holidays. At 1 to 11 o'clock at night, right now, the last bus 1 to 9 o'clock, and no Sundays and holidays, bus 58. And I think bus 27 would benefit a lot of people, but it goes to man now, it's Stop and Shop, you got Williamville Square, you go Market Basket, 58 doesn't do it. And they used to go straight towards Wendy, Spring Ave, it doesn't do that. Goes right towards Douglas Ave. Just hope they prove it. I've been trying to do this for 14 years. I hope I want to do this for another 10 years. You know, I've been trying, I did 4 bills, they vetoed the bill 4 times. Very disappointing system, but I'm trying. Thank you.
Thank you. Do the board members have any questions? Thank you.
Next speaker is Ray Gagney.
Good afternoon, I'm Ray Gagney with the Rhode Island Organizing Project. I'd urge you to reject this proposal. The first element is the fare hikes. The last time we tried to raise fares was with the no fare population. We tried to charge 50 cents. It's absolute chaos. It's absolute chaos. After the second week of the month, people couldn't afford to even go outside. Food pantries, soup kitchens, their populations were going down because people couldn't get there. I have very proud elderly woman coming into my office in Providence, wailing, absolutely wailing, because they had no way to get anywhere. I had one World War II vet that would call me like every day. When's the governor going to change her mind? When's the governor going to change her mind? I mean, I don't see a schedule for raising the fares, but when they do, it'll be a different population. It might not be so dramatic. The folks who are going to be hurt the most are the workers that work paycheck to paycheck.
There's gonna be that little bit more it's just gonna hurt them. So I urge you to reject this. In terms of the fare hikes, you know, I've been doing outreach to bus riders almost every week for like 8 years. And I always ask them, what can we do to make RIPTA better? Better night and weekends. More lines like the R line. It's hard for me to visit my cousin in the rural areas. I live in Warwick, it's hard to get around. This proposal just sets us back. We need to go back to governor and have him find the money for this. Again, the service cuts, folks who are going to be hurt the most are going to be the workers. When I go to Kennedy Plaza, I'm shocked how far people have to commute, get to work, how many different exchanges. So 15 minutes might not seem like that much, but if you've got 2 in the middle of the day and you're a shift worker and you're going to a healthcare facility, people could be late for work or their commutes just get long. So again, thank you for your time. I wish you to reject this. Thank you.
Do the board members have any questions? Thank you.
Speaker is Jonathan Kopp.
All of you, good afternoon. I, like many others who preceded me, by whose comments I'm really quite humbled, would like to speak out against these service cuts for RIPTA, these reductions in RIPTA. And I think first, let's think about what the Rhode Island Transit Forward 2040 program said in 2020. It said Rhode Island's economic health and quality of life are tied directly to the strength of its transit network. We can recognize that in 2020. It seems we're really questioning it today. And the question I want to ask is why? Ostensibly, it's about money, right? We all are familiar with the $10 million figure. And I think, to be at risk of being blunt, I think many people kind of see through that. The Department of Transportation generally has a very healthy budget. I believe the 2025 revised budget was 1.1 billion. And even the Department of Public Safety gets, I think, 220 million. So 10 million, right, dwarfed by these numbers. But what I think the numbers kind of obfuscate is the question of value. What's the value of RIPTA, of public transportation? Who is it for? And the answer is, well, it's for all of us. It's a public investment. Public investment in public transit. It has so many benefits. Right, it can reduce congestion, can keep our roads in a better shape, reduce the number of accidents, reduce the number of drunk drivers. And of course, we all recognize the benefits that it has for low-income people, for people who require public transit to get around and to contribute to our economy. So we understand, we can all understand, I think, intuitively that RIPTA has a benefit, right? So to take away a benefit, what are we getting out of that? And what are we getting from taking away a benefit? We're getting harm. I volunteer at a shelter for youth. None of these young people have cars. They're all trying to get jobs. They're all trying to make it in the society. And frankly, they're talented and they're insightful and they have bright futures. But they're being held back. And what we should really be doing is holding out a hand to them and saying, you know, when we help, it has a ripple effect. It benefits society at large. When we put people in secure jobs, when we make it so that they can get health care and they have stability in their lives, it benefits society as a whole. So RIPTA's for all of us.
Copyright your 3-minute limit.
Yeah, thank you. And so I just want to close with a quote from Franklin Delano Roosevelt. The test of our progress is not whether we add more to the abundance of those who have much. It is whether we provide enough for those who have too little. Thank you.
Do the members of the board have any questions? Thank you.
Next speaker is Angela Lima.
Thank you. My name is Lima. I want to thank the Honorable board members today, be able to listen to. Thank you for your patience and your willingness to listen. I can speak from a couple of perspectives. I was one, I live in Newport, and at the time, I had gotten a job at one point in downtown Providence working for a law firm. And I wasn't making enough money to be able to afford at the time $400 a month for a parking space. So I looked to the bus services in order to help. It's one of those commuters traveling to get to my job. Unfortunately, I probably lasted about 1 month because I was also a mom caring for a young child, and I had to be there for my child. And unfortunately, the services, it took something like 3 hours just to get from work to Providence. So I lost out on that job, not because I didn't want to continue working there, but because logistically I had obligations to my family to be there. And then again, financially, I couldn't afford $400 on renting space just to get to work. I also in my capacity as a former elected official for the city of Newport, I have done a ton of work in terms of urban planning, making those decisions. I want to tell you in specific, Route 68 is absolutely critical and important, as well as Route 63. Those are within that area of that bus route. There are over something like, there's just about 5,000 people that live there that happen to be our most economically disadvantaged. They're also our housekeepers, our chefs, people who are going into work and that need, and also our professors at South Bay Virginia University that also utilize those bus systems. It is also a critical line for Department of Health. Unfortunately, where DHS is located in Middletown, it's not exactly access friendly. So those services provide very fundamental need in order to get people to where they are going. I also, again, thinking about urban planning and design, there are lots of municipalities that are talking about density and doing.
I apologize if they're.
Oh,
Wrap up pretty quickly.
well, a lot of planners and are building around density. I just want to say, I know that you all are trying your best. And I know that the clock doesn't stop here with you all, but you have the influence. If there's even just one of you making this critical decision, you can absolutely slow down the process. You can continue, if you'd like, to further discuss, even if you have just one reservation. I thank you for your time.
Any board members have any questions?
Next speaker.
Thank you.
Davina DeLuz.
Members of the board. With these cuts coming to RIPTA, it is something that is not only going to be something that affects people on the roads, in their personal lives, but also within their interpersonal lives. RIPTA as a whole, as it is designed now, is not designed for people in mind. It is not designed for people to meet. It is designed to get people away from where they are. It is designed inefficiently. It is designed over the past 4 years that I have been here in a way that is not the best for the people. It needs to be reassessed, looked at through many different markers, including traffic tracking and making sure that people are kept in mind. these service cuts will not only affect people's work, people's revenue, this will affect people's way of information. People are not able to truly understand the world around them. Getting information from the people, from others, from news stations that they might not be able to access as cable has phased out of the normal household. These are real things that people are facing down as these cuts come into play. Fear, as well as separation from others. It is an inflection point to look at, to say that these cuts cannot come through. It will deteriorate the fabric of Rhode Island as I see it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Board members have any questions? Thank you.
Speaker is Dawn Sumner. Dawn Sumner. Hector Perez Aponte.
Good afternoon, board members. Folks don't look tired at all. Glad to be here and speaking with you folks. My name is Hector Perez Aponte. I'm the Racial Justice Policy Analyst at the Economic Progress Institute. The Economic Progress Institute is deeply concerned about the newly proposed budget framework for RIPTA. The new plan relies on fare increases and proposes some service reductions, which still unfairly shifts the burden of balancing RIPTA's budget on our vulnerable population. These communities, particularly low-income households, communities of color, and individuals with disabilities should not be forced to bear higher costs while simultaneously facing fewer options for transportation. In Rhode Island, 68% of single adults and 78% of single parents with 2 children cannot afford their basic needs without assistance, underscoring the need to consider this reality when evaluating fare increase. I also urge the members of the board to consider public transit funding in the broader context of all transportation. As many are already aware, the car tax phase out was not a one-time event, and in the enacted FY 2026 budget includes $239.5 million to make local governments whole from the loss of revenue from the phase out. This is an annual and indefinite appropriation. And the entirety of the appropriation subsidizes car owners, so they need not pay the tax. Phase out and the annual appropriation do not provide the benefit of tax relief to all Rhode Islanders. Provides no relief for the approximately 9% of Rhode Island households without any available vehicles. Rental occupied households, this rate is 21.5%, according to the United States Census Bureau data. We are subsidizing car owners with $239.5 million from general revenue funds each year. We should think about doing more to subsidize non-car owners, as well as car owners who would prefer to use public transportation more often than they do. We strongly urge the RIPTA board, the governor's office, and the General Assembly to prioritize and make the appropriate allocations to this vital service. Thank you.
Board members have any questions? Thank you.
Next speaker is Janice Douglas.
I travel taking about 10 buses per month, going different places that I have to get to. This is how I travel around. Seniors, I'm a senior citizen, all right? He's 69 on Saturday. The problem is taking away the buses on the weekend, okay? Are we to be prisoners in our homes and not able to get out and to get around? The senior citizen voting population in the state of Rhode Island is at 85%, okay? Have votes to count and need to be listened to. Okay. One of the biggest waste is moving the bus station over to Durant Street. That is just really ridiculous. That's at a cost estimated at $200 to $250 million. Where's that money coming from? And why is it necessary? Why can't $10 million be taken from that? All right, and be used to subsidize what's needed for RIPTA. Okay, so I just want to ask the board to rethink that, the reasons why that you want to move the bus station. It's really necessary. It's got a great proximity to the train station. It should not be moved. And you're upsetting the lives of many people, or the ones who count, not the politicians and business owners who might want that real estate there at Kennedy Plaza. But that hub should remain there. And you think the cost on it, and take the funds that you need from the set aside that is made for the new hub. Thank you very much.
Board members have any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Amy Glidden.
Hello. Want to recognize that this might be a little hard to hear for some of you. This is put down as a McGee-Duran proposal, but I don't believe that. I think it's definitely coming from Governor McGee. Governor McGee's proposal to fund RIPTA is a scam. He claims to save public transit while slashing service on over 45 routes. In reality, he's offering RIPTA a loan, not funding. That's money they'll be forced to pay back while struggling to survive. This is an investment in sabotage. McGee is pushing his agenda to right-size RIPTA straight into the ground. These massive cuts threaten to plunge the agency into a death spiral. Fewer buses, fewer riders, more cuts, and eventual collapse. These are one of the most extreme cuts in RIPTA's 61-year history. McGee insists they only affect low ridership routes and off-peak hours. That's false. Most routes lose frequency during all their hours of service, even the R line. Rural routes are disproportionately impacted by cuts, and many routes are especially impacted on the weekends. Across the board, riders will face reduced frequency, longer waits, and worse service. Over 40,000 daily riders depend on RIPTA to get to work, school, and essential services. Cuts will strand riders, destroy commutes, and damage communities. They undermine Rhode Island's climate goals and economic resilience. McGee wants riders to pay more for worse service. While the base fare hasn't changed in some time, the $70 monthly pass is already one of the priciest in the region. With inflation squeezing families, raising fares while slashing service is indefensible. To make matters worse, McGee is pushing ahead with a costly transit hub no one asked for with zero funding committed. The idea that we need to build a new terminal for a bus system the governor and the General Assembly refuse to fully fund is unwise. This proposal offers no long-term solution. Dumps this deficit back onto the agency and its riders, pretending public transit isn't the state's responsibility. That's absurd. Like roads and highways, RIPTA is a public good and should be fully funded. Its $65 million budget is pocket change, $14 billion state budget. This proposal is cruel, dishonest, and a direct attack on public transit in Rhode Island. It must be rejected. The board needs to stand with riders and send this plan straight to the trash. And I want to say I've been involved in transit advocacy for over 15 years. And if you pass this today, this is not over. We're going to keep fighting this, and we will fight it all the way to a new governor that supports ridership, to have a board that will support riders.
Board members have any questions? Thank you.
Next speaker is Emily Gribus.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Emily Gribas. It's nice to meet y'all. This is my first oral testimony, so you're a part of a core memory. I took the 20 to get here. I am a science communicator, science educator, and I moved from Philadelphia to Providence last January. I came here originally for a job at URI, where I was connecting with climate scientists, helping them connect to their audience and make their science more impactful. And I had to take 2 buses to get there, an hour and a half commute. And I love the bus. I'm used to the bus. Actually, in Philadelphia, I was looking, the population is pretty comparable to the population of the entire state of Rhode Island. And in Philly, not only do they have a bus system that is very reliable, they have a train system and a trolley system. So as a grad student, when I was staying late to work in the lab, like studying infectious disease, I never had to worry about walking alone late at night because I knew that the bus was always an option. With Rhode Island, I was kind of sold on the dream that this was the ocean state and that I'd have access to the beaches. And that is really a difficult dream to access here, I realize now. Even getting to URI, like the bus that I would take, the 66, it goes every hour. And if I had to stay late, I would have to Uber or ride share something. And that's $30 to $40 one way. I also have a very strong connection to the indigenous population here. The Narragansett Reservation is impossible to access on RIPTA. So URI, the state school here, the Tamaqua Museum, the Narragansett Reservation, all of the beaches are already difficult for me to access. I really urge y'all to also postpone these votes. We need more funding for RIPTA, not less, please. And I wanted to end, there was like a little story. I was on the 2728 and there was the bus driver stopped at one of the fruit stands that we had on Westminster. He stopped the entire bus and went to buy a mango. And like he stopped all of it and he just brought the mango inside. So there's little bits of whimsy that we just don't get riding everywhere. So there's all this mundane joy and just being with people in this space, getting to enjoy like how beautiful this entire state is really important. Like I can't put a number to it. And so, yeah, I think that I meant to ask in the beginning, no shame if you haven't, but can you raise your hands if y'all have ridden RIPTA? Okay, yeah, like then I encourage you all to continue doing it and try to find the joy and just be with people.
So wrap it up.
Yeah, so that's it. Thanks for your time.
Board members have any questions? Thank you.
Next speaker is Ren Bang.
Hi, I have a few things to say. Did RIDOT ever have to do an efficiency study? Like, RIPTA is the most scrutinized agency here, but it also provides like the basis of our urban fabric. But when you're funding RIPTA, when you're giving all these subsidies to car infrastructure, you're helping no one but the people that are privileged and healthy enough to drive cars. You're leaving behind everyone that has to take the bus. And think of all the students who have to commute by bus. I couldn't have gone to high school. I didn't go to high school here, but I couldn't have made it to high school without public transit. And I can't imagine all the students here that rely on RIPTA to do so, being unable to catch their buses and having to miss or having to wait like 30, 40 minutes because they miss their buses. And all the elderly people that won't be able to live their lives if they no longer have access to bus service. You're throwing aside all the people with these cuts. You're throwing aside everyone that can't drive a car. All of the people that you don't see, and everyone that you do subsidize and fund. Because I know you have the money. There is $10 billion somewhere in the state to pad out the funding that RIPTA needs. And with all the car infrastructure you're funding right now, it's just going to these privileged people. And they're not even having that, they're not even doing that well. I mean, people who drive have to wait hours in traffic, and the roads are full of potholes. And I mean, Providence is infamously terrible to drive in. No one's having a good time. So, yeah, that's funny.
Board members have any questions? Thank you.
Speaker is Pat Ford.
I know I won't talk about the soccer stadium today. Probably much better information. My name is Pat Ford. I'm with an organization called Coalition News. We're an independent media company based here in Providence, Rhode Island. I'm going to draw briefly in my 3 minutes from something called the Rhode Island Commerce Corporation, a component unit of the state of Rhode Island,
Notes to their financial statements, page 38. And it's something called appropriations from state hotel revenue tax and other income from the state. It's a full page. And it goes on, and by the way, for those of you unfamiliar, Commerce RI is essentially an investment bank for the state of Rhode Island. Some would say larding out millions of dollars in corporate welfare. In this year's 2024 statement, the state gave them in excess of $64 million. And there's an entire list of, and again, George Carlin, as I like to say, would have a field day with this. There is something called the Wavemaker Fellowship, which gets $4 million. There's designated grants. First Wave Closing Fund. Now, this one's special, $10 million. Now, we keep getting back to the central point that that $10 million keeps coming up in different places. So what is that? Now, for example, there was an organization called Regent Craft. I've toured their facilities. I've spoken to their president in my normal course of business. They received $1 million under the First Wave Closing Fund Act and $3 million under the Rebuild Rhode Island Tax Credit Act. There's lots of money being thrown around there. Now, if I was a Weisenheimer, as Sister Gilbert used to say to me, I would say that perhaps RIPTA should go to RI Commerce and maybe they could get some help. Millions of dollars given to out-of-state corporations, people promising the moon to us if they come to Rhode Island. And these are companies that could easily be funded by the private capital markets. They have balance sheets, and I assume that the course of review of Rhode Island Commerce has looked at these balance sheets. What I'm asking is that you take $10 million of this, instead of investing in these far-flung enterprises that come to our shores, some of them know better than carniacs, and invest $10 million to people of Rhode Island. Thank you.
Thank you. Board members have any questions? Thank you.
Someday you guys can answer questions. All right, you ready? Could be a little notice though. Roll the tape.
You want to do it from there, Fran? Do it from there.
Bring that back over here. Let me be over there. I would have saved you guys some time, but no. That's it. Oh, Steve's not here. What have been help? Good afternoon, Grant Bulgarian Ecology Action for Rhode Island. I want to thank you all for your public service. I'm going to talk about something that is not usually talked about at RIPTA. However, RIPTA is the Rhode Island Public Transit Authority. That encompasses full range of transit. I'm going to say two words, you know what I'm going to talk about. The bridge. A year and a half ago, we were told the bridge needed major work. I got top. 2 months later, we were told the bridge is dead. Need to replace it. What was the price tag for that bridge that was reported then? $250 million. And what will that gain us? One travel lane in each direction for a fraction of a mile. I said to myself, when we enacted the environmental laws back in the 70s, created EIS, environmental impact statements, why didn't we make them mandatory if a single project was going to cost more than a certain amount of money? And I'm a round figure kind of guy. My number would have been $100 million. That's going to cost more than $100 million. Do an EIS. Obviously, we didn't make it mandatory because we're not doing an EIS. What would an EIS do? Looks at the proposed action. What that is. Looks at no action. It's self-explanatory. It looks at alternatives. What would my alternative be? Rail. And not just rail between Providence and East Providence, but rail between Providence and East Providence, going down to Riverside, Barrington, Warren, Bristol, across the Portsmouth, Middletown, Newport. I'd like to know what the economic impact would be if we connected downtown Providence and downtown Newport by rail. That's what an EIS would do. And that's what we should do. price tag, bridge, has migrated. By the end of last year, it was over $300 million. A couple of weeks ago, there was an article in the Providence Journal talking about the bridge. The price that was in that article was over $400 million. If connecting downtown Providence to downtown Newport by rail was going to have to start from scratch, that would be a different story, but that's not the case. There's three major cost components of that. We got 2 out of 3. What's the major cost component? A tunnel under College Hill. Guess what? We got it. What's the second major cost component? A bridge over the Seekonk River. Guess what? We still have it, thankfully. The only cost component that we don't have is a bridge parallel to the Mount Hope Bridge connecting Bristol to Portsmouth. Do that, we get a cost on that. Once you get to Quinnipiac Island, we got a rail line. Runs all the way down to Newport. Used in the summer for the Denver train, and after that, I do not, nothing.
Wrap it up.
30 seconds. RIPTA should ask state to do an EIS. And what entity of the state is the most appropriate to look at this? Rhode Island Commerce Corporation. Does anybody here in this room know anybody on the board of the Rhode Island Commerce Corporation?
I do.
That's what should be asked right away before we spend any more money on the bridge. Get an EIS done. Let's look at the numbers. Then we can make an informed decision. Firm believer, as we have, better decision we make. That's my request. I think this might be transportation transformative moment. As Julius Caesar said, carpe diem. Paraphrase, you need to seize the moment. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Board members, have any questions? Thank you.
You want to roll out?
Oh,
Director, there was no one else signed up to speak.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the CEO report.
Thank you, Director. You have some very this month. Preliminary finance, 6/30/25. Still preliminary, there's still adjustments that can be coming in. Also did want to just call out the spotlight to a month. Ruth Zora, Central Station Department. She just does great work every day. That, I have the same question on the CEO report, happy to answer.
Yes.
I noticed we're, well, after the adjustments or anticipated adjustments, where do you think we're going to end up for fiscal 25?
I think we're going to end up close to balance. So one of the adjustments is stacks that we get from the state. So that's at least 3 million, I believe.
So we have right now on a piece of paper, 7 million year to date. State subsidies down. And you know that there's going to be some adjustment. So where do we think that 7 million is going to? What were we expecting from the state that we're not getting?
I think I mentioned that. I forget which one of the streams is down. But it depends on that adjustment. So I'm gonna
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you. The next item on the agenda is board discussion, potential vote on service changes.
Hey, Director. So as the board knows, this was the last meeting. I was able to follow up with him shortly after that meeting, discussion around his concerns and types of things. The biggest thing that he wanted to see was he didn't want to see the go for completely the plan. He also raised the concerns around, administrative costs and federal funding and how we kind of dig into that of the Canada. He also flagged for us that he wants to understand what our plan is. For agency, in place multi-year adjustments, somewhat tied to inflation, so that you kind of know what's coming. But I think even broader, what percentage of our costs are covered by fares, what are our benchmarks, and how do we get to go about that? In the end, we went back, took that information, took those questions into consideration, very closely with the scheduling team, we're able to bring the cuts down by about half. We were able to preserve all groups, we're able to any possible layoffs this time. And we're actually bolstering the entire transit program by moving some of those operators over there, decreasing the reliance on these. This puts more people on our vehicles with our drivers. And in light of the right anywhere being made permanent, this is a big adjustment that has to happen. It's a positive step. In the end, the governor then stepped in and it's dedicated additional $3 million to finish the deficit. So we started with a $32 million deficit not too long ago. And we're now at a point where we're not fully eliminating the routes, not taking anybody off, anything for actually starting the service. These changes are necessary. I appreciate the governor's support. Thank you for General Assembly support as well. Continue to chip away at this, so we've got this down to approximately $4 million when these cuts register. Of course, these funds, we're asking for funds. We also have to be able to take what we get and put it to the best possible use. There's a bunch of things as we work internally that this actually does. I understand that the benchmark may be the amount of fixed service on the road every day, but there's a lot more to this agency than just that. I'll say that I think looking at how we schedule our work, we heard repeatedly about layover time, recovery time, even hours of the day, how we kind of scrunch all this together. This is actually giving us a chance to kind of take a step back and to kind of figure some different things out, improve some of the working conditions. Again, reduce the reliance on outside contracts with they're able to control over. If there is an issue with a rider, sorry, an operator, it's not one of ours, especially with the training programs that we have, the technology that we have today, and that will expand upon. So with that said, our goal is to take whatever resources we do have, put out the most reliable service, work with our workforce itself to give them the best possible experience, to retain them to do these difficult jobs. We're also going to be pushing some employees over to the maintenance department, which will help us kind of catch up on some bus shelter cleaning that we're struggling to get ahead of. We will become to the board over the next few months on some different requests for approvals, whether it's new fare technology components that allow us to accept open payments, new systems for data analysis. The team had demoed a program this past summer where we saw significant improvement in terms of the information at our fingertips. So if a passenger called, we could answer where their bus was faster, and we actually turn that over to providers as well. You'll see that information, have a better picture as to what's happening on the screen. So I think there's a lot of work that we have to do ahead of us. And again, I just want to thank the governor and the General Assembly for all the help they had to take us down from the starting point to where we are now. That's right, drive.
First, I want to commend you and your staff for the hard work and long hours. This is kind of tough thing to work on. And you and your staff, all of them, along with the unions that represent the drivers here, have worked hard together to come up with this set of recommendations. During that process, did you use the efficiency study for guidance on making these decisions?
We did.
of the decisions that you made, were all or some or most, how would you characterize that part of the efficiency study recommendation?
It informed the entire process we took, looking at the ratings. Which was not just ridership, it was trips per hour, it was several variables, security and access. We used that as a starting. But then the difficult part of that was purely working off that. Those lower performing groups don't cost us a lot to operate. So we looked at a few different things. One of them that you see on the R line is, as you mentioned, is instead of us running the same frequency all day, you preserve as much of the peak frequency as we can. But then midday it might drop, which actually provides a lot of to how we can schedule. At nighttime it can drop. And that does tie to what we see in ridership. Yeah, that same frequency all day is obviously standard, but without the financial funds to support that. If these are adjustments we can make that I think supports the ridership not just today. We also looked at the express routes, which we know even before the efficiency study, that those routes had the hardest hit during the pandemic and have had the worst recovery thus far. We've tried to realign some of them. For example, we're running 4 or 5 trips out to different areas. In the ridership per trip is about 5 people. So there's some of these trips, by taking out some of the trips, preserving what we can. We're trying to maintain access, but trying to kind of just make that a little bit more efficient. So we use the study to help us understand.
So the reason I ask this is that a mandate last year by the legislature codified a requirement for you to implement, to have an efficiency study done and to implement the changes that are recommended in that. How would you report that back to the legislature that set that as a basic requirement of the agency?
So we will be having lots of conversations this fall about kind of what this, where we are financially, what this did, and really unpack it. Because there is a lot to this. It's difficult to explain all these different pieces of parts, but put the onus on us. And
but I mean, the way I'm seeing it is that you were mandated to have an efficiency study and implement the recommendations of that. And it appears to me that you have accomplished that. You've had the study done, and you have now, as part of these changes that you're proposing today, implemented the efficiency study recommendation. Other members of the board?
Sure. I'm gonna speak off the 1-page sheet that you gave in terms of the adjustments, when we started with the 30 million and so forth. So the first bucket, efficiency actions, doing them. And it has nothing to do with any of the funds. The next budget, new revenue. Presumably, hopefully, do all of these things. Has nothing to do with the cuts. State revenue is simply the next bucket. Block. We have those funds. So the cuts, really, we need to look at what I'll call the last block, if you will. I have some doubts of the congestion mitigation and quality improvement program is going to have to go through. DOT is going to have to write to Federal Highway for permission to transfer the funds. The state planning group has to consent writing, which I don't think. The Federal Transit Agency is going to have to approve whatever it is that we are going to propose using those funds for, which presumably is to fill in operating expenses, which I think the way I read literature on that act, most of that is designed to deal with air quality and congestion. So we may have a hard time making the case for that. And most of those funds are for capital operations. So we have to get the FTA with what I think is probably not a very friendly federal administration at the moment to Rhode Island to sort of jump through some hoops, prove a thing that is not standard, if you will. So I'm a little worried if that 3 million ever comes through.
So let me ask you about that 3 million. How do you feel about that? Have you had any discussions? Do you have any sense how the federal government is going to treat that?
Trade and CNAC funds.
You've done it for years.
Get about 3 million. Yep, and so I think it's just a one-time increase. Be used, I think, the point on that account is a good one. However, there's exception something about federal law that and rail, commuter rail state can use those funds to reimburse those services, so do have eligible expenses. So I think from where I sit on the
How do the experts that you hired feel about the ability to do that?
the specific one, I haven't checked that with them, but
Yeah. And have we ever done any of these transfers under the new federal administration?
Yes.
We have?
in the past, like,
Well, if that comes through, that's not new money.
Mhm.
We have to pay it back.
Yep.
So there's no new money at all. So I'm looking at this box, the impact of the target rate adjustments, let's say 4.4 million. Paratransit increase going to cost us 2.31. We can't net those two numbers because if we didn't have the cuts, we like that 2.31 is going to be some other number. And I think we should find a way to like try to tax the service anyway. So the bottom line is, I think the hole, if you will, is definitely not the $10 million hole anymore, because we can do these three top things. So now we're dealing with a smaller amount. So I'm sitting here as a board member. I feel like I have a fiduciary duty as a board member that I have to vote on a budget that is going to be a balanced budget. I can't say that we're going to thumb our nose at the General Assembly, the governor, and we're going to spend an extra 5 million, 10 million. And so the number, I can't feel like as a board member, I can do that. So therefore, I would have to vote for the cuts. Like I said at the last meeting, that I was reluctantly prepared to do that because we didn't have anything else on the table. And then the governor's letter came in a few minutes before the meeting, and it was basically to have further negotiations. Suggest we have further discussion in a sense as a potential solution, because I also sit here as a person living in the state of Rhode Island and, who's been familiar over the years with state budgets and supplemental appropriations, all of these other things. And it makes absolutely no sense to me with a $14 million a year budget that we are making these cuts to public transit. And the case has been made by the folks. We had hundreds of people testifying at the public hearings that we had, a lot of them heartbreaking. We had, emails coming in. We had all of these things coming in. So it makes no sense that we can't find $5 million, let's say, in the supplemental budget. Suggestion's been made that let's have a special session at the General Assembly, call for that. That's a real shot. I don't see that happening. However, I think the support in the General Assembly to approve $5 million in a supplemental budget is definitely there if the governor asks for it. And why do I say that? What's my proof of that? First of all, on the Senate side, the vote was 16 to 20 to not add $10 million to the budget. A swing of 3 votes, we would have, the Senate would have rejected the House budget. I've been around a long time, I can't recall, I may be wrong on this, the Senate ever rejecting the House budget on the last day of the general session. You have
One time,
one.
and it
caused
poisoned the
Poisoned
relationship between
the-
the chambers
Right.
pretty
So-
significantly. I see Representative Yancey's head nodding.
Yeah.
That when they did that.
Yeah.
That
So-
made things very difficult for the state to operate.
So a lot of those 20 votes that said, no, we're not going to change the budget to add 10 million RIPTA wasn't because they were against adding $10 million to RIPTA. There was an institutional issue that we don't want to blow up the budget on the last day of the session for the very things that you mentioned. So I think we have tremendous support in the Senate that if the governor puts a supplemental budget, let's say $5 million, or up to 5 million, if that's what we need, at the end, that the Senate will pass it. On the House side, the House, at the time, they voted on budget. They didn't have the efficiency study that they mandated that we bring in by March 1, so that's on us that it didn't get done. So we're not an unreasonable position to say, we, the House, want to see that efficiency study because you folks may be totally inefficient. And now I think we all agree, or should agree, that the efficiency study shows that you're really efficient in terms of.
Well, hold on, let's not draw conclusions that are false here. As far as I see, the recommendations that were given to us by the efficiency study authors that were here addressing the board on August 7th said we should explore additional opportunities for use of federal funds. They exist, and probably won't be enough to cover the cost savings, but they'll offset shortfall. We did that, right? Okay. They said federalized positions linked to capital budget. These are the experts. We did that, right? You're doing that as part of this plan. They said increase the use of federal formula funds to reimburse route segments for rural, low income and reverse commutes. Have you implemented that in your plan? They said service reductions are needed. Have you done that? They said expand employer partnership programs to expand revenue. Are you planning to do that? As part of this plan, right? They said strengthen investment in high performing firms. Is this plan doing that? Sure. But there are attempts in this to accomplish that. It says continue implementing the transit master plan. Will you be doing that? So I don't know where the legislature expects us. We're going back to the legislature. They expect us to take the findings of this efficiency study and implement them. It sounds to me like that's what the CEO is proposing to do.
We're implementing it in box 2. The only one that you mentioned that we're not implementing is if we can get assurances of an extra $5 million would be
the
cuts.
The CEO is telling us that he's confident we can do that.
Yes, we can do it with the cut. Here's what I'm suggesting. Here's where I'm going.
Well, they recommended the cuts. So that was part of the efficiency study. So the legislature is going to be looking to us to do that. We can't just go back to them as we have historically and say, we just want more money, regardless of what the efficiency study says, and how the agency has worked out conforming to it and filling the gap that exists. Regardless of all of that, we just want you to give us more money. That hasn't worked. How's that worked for the last 40 years?
That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying
I'm running the meeting, so I'll run the meeting. Thank you.
No, and Peter's always been good. He lets me say whatever I want to say.
I always do.
So I don't have a problem with that. I'm saying that we have support strong in the Senate. If the governor were to say in the next 2 weeks, I I will commit to putting, if you need it, up to $5 million in a supplemental budget that I'm going to submit. That's good enough for me. He's going to put it in. I have every confidence that that would pass the legislature. One of the objections that was made by the House side was the governor didn't ask for it, so why should we give it? And this, under my scenario, he's asking for a supplemental budget. I think it would pass the House. If the House Finance Committee ever heard, and I read all of the testimony, all of the folks who testified at all the public hearings, if they ever heard that, we wouldn't have a problem here the next time. Come somewhere else. And to go to the supplemental budget process, that is for adjustments that can be made and are made. Probably not a fair comparison. Last year's supplemental budget moved $1 billion. The reason for that, obviously, was because of the expiration of a lot of federal funds. Pandemic years, we've been moving hundreds of millions around in supplemental budgets. If you go to pre-pandemic years, it's not unusual for one agency to go up. Another agency might have savings. They might have a project that's not ready to go forward, or they now discovered is feasible. Adjustments are made every year. So what I'm suggesting is we approve the cuts because I don't have any other choice. I got nothing else on the table right now that tells me that, you know, I can't just say we're going to run a deficit. But if the governor says in the next 2 weeks, I'm suggesting we approve the cuts. But if the governor in the next 2 weeks says, you know, I'm going to put $5 million in the supplemental budget, I'm comfortable if we have to come back to me to rescind the cuts. That'll take care of it. These other blocks all still go forward. We're down in this block here. We're not looking at 10 million.
Very
And
good.
I believe we could get 5 million for the General Assembly without a doubt if the governor asks for it.
Thank you.
Then we don't have to have this.
So you've had discussions with the governor, and I see a letter signed by both you and the governor here. Does that letter, all the discussions you have, give way to the notions that Mr. Benoit is proffering here?
I have talked to the
Okay,
in this form, I believe this is the one.
this is the deal that you and the governor and his staff have reached. Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Yes.
Yes, I believe there should be more outreach to dialogue in listening. The challenge the community has, the community has voice, and the people that are going to be elected is the community. So I believe that there should be more outreach to dialogue in listening and challenge. And has anyone had a conversation with the Speaker of the House about increased support? Well, if yes, it's important.
Well, I think we're trying here today to address this year's budget that was approved. And discussions about next year's budget are coming up. I think there'll be plenty of opportunity. I mean, do you have anything to add to that?
You've talked to everyone we possibly could talk to. Here.
Yeah.
This is the final result.
And how many hours would you say of public testimony? Many.
So
I think we're at a deciding point here today. I think that's what the board is here to make a decision on the agreement that in agreements and the proposal that the CEO has put forward after hearing from the public many hours, conversing with the leadership of the House and Senate, and conversations and discussions with the governor.
Yeah, but
Now it's our turn to either support or not support that. So to that end, I think I would call for a vote. Unless other, yes,
Make a
this does not suit the vote.
hold your motion.
I urge the board to postpone it.
My motion is to.
No, hold on.
I'm sorry.
Hold on. Go ahead.
So I just want to make a statement. I agree with many of the comments that were made. I agree that the transit system is an economic generator for the state. I truly believe that. I believe that we need to service our workers, families, and others who use the system. I am empathetic towards the riders' services that are cost. I believe that we not only need to service everyone, we need to expand where it's needed. The problem, we were given a certain budget amount, and I cannot support an unbalanced budget. But I will continue to try to find solutions and not only recover, but expand where necessary.
Thank you. Any other board members have any comments, questions? Yes.
I agree with Mr. Lombardi and I agree with Mr. Benoit. You know, if the governor wants to put in a supplemental budget in the next 2 weeks and we rescind these cuts, then schedule a special meeting and we'll come back and do that. I think I share your pessimism that there will be a special session of the General Assembly this fall. And I think, given what we've heard from the CEO about what is in the performance, I mean, 3 weeks ago, we were looking at layoffs across the board. That's been eliminated. You know, one of the things that I think is really undersold, Chris, if I could say it bluntly, you know, ending the privatization of some of the services for the agency and bringing that back in is a big deal. I mean, that undoes a mistake that I think this agency made many years ago. And I think that's going to lead to increased service outcomes for the riders. I don't think anyone here wants these things to go. And if someone in the government gives us the budget to undo them, sign me up and we'll get there and we'll undo them. You know, I mean, I know this isn't a universally shared opinion among the members of the board, but I'll raise the taxes on the rich tomorrow if we need to do this. You know, we'll tax every 1%er out there. I mean, I support that. I've been advocating that for years. One of the frustrating elements of being on a board like this is that much of our decision-making processes are determined by other people. And not acting would, if I'm right, Chris, continue to bleed the agency money. If every month that this gets delayed without some kind of agreement, the agency is going deeper and deeper into deficit. Is that right? So.
Can I ask a question? At what point, where are we in that process right now? How close are we?
So these cuts are targeted based off the time. Taking that back.
And we need to make that decision today. Thank you.
So what is that? What is the long-term solution? Is of course more than start beginning.
I think we are largely, I think, executing budget that we've been given. Talk to everyone, we've been up at the hearings, we've done all those things, and this is where we land. And in terms of the bus hub, I think that's a long project that's been discussed for 10+ years. And there'll be but that money can't be used for this. It just can't. So I think that's, all of these things that we discussed. I think, frankly, this has been a long budget season. We're a quarter of the way into this budget now, and still haven't kind of made the changes that we have to take in order to balance our budget. So I answered your question. I apologize, but.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Well, I don't believe that there's any member of this board, they had the ability, but not want to expand service. I mean, we've listened to the riders and we have empathy for them, definitely. And unfortunately, we live in a cost-dependent world, not a cost-independent. And if it were not for the budget constraints, I mean, as Jim said, we really have not much of an alternative. This is the best case for an unfortunate scenario to make the budget work.
Right. I make a motion, we approve the cuts, subject to if the governor before September 11 says that he's going to put $5 million in the supplemental budget, that those cuts be rescinded. You can run your choose up now, and if the cuts are placed.
Well, could you make that a form of actual?
I did. I move to approve the cuts that management is recommending, provided, however, if the governor in the next 2 weeks, i.e. by September 11, indicates that he will put in a supplemental budget $5 million, or up to $5 million, whatever we end up in the hole for, then if the cuts are rescinded and we go forward. That's my move.
On motion, maybe discussion? Yep. Well, I'd like to add commentary. Look, we can't pass an unbalanced budget here. And I think your proposal is doing precisely that. It is proposing cuts without proposing associated changes in revenues. And the proposal that Chris, his staff, the governor, and everybody else that was involved in it put together creates a balanced plan. I would say that if we're going to take action, we take action on the basis of what he's proposing, approve his plan. And if all of the things you want to happen, we could always amend that plan. We could always amend the plan, but at least we have a plan in place that meets the muster of the federal agencies for us to not lose funding. So on that, we're looking then for, I guess, the second to the motion. We have to. Do we have any other motions?
I move to approve the plan proposed by the CEO.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it.
Yeah, I'm opposed. I'm in favor of the cuts. I'm opposed with not adding my proviso, but so I guess to put me against. But again, I firmly believe if we don't have the resources,
we hear it. Okay, that is the final. Oh, I'm sorry. There item number 7 is any additional board questions or answers. I think we pretty much beat that up. So next item is adjournment.
Motion to adjourn. Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Shame on you.
The ayes have it. This meeting is adjourned.